Namaha. Chaitanyamanovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanivyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai. So welcome everyone to today's class. We're going to be continuing with chapter 2. And we're going to finish chapter 2 today. And maybe we'll start chapter 3 as well. So, any questions from yesterday's class? Before we start, Kishori?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Kishori ji.
Mataji, I have questioned that Krishna is saying in chapter 2, verse 63, Krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohasiti vidbrama. That truth is very harmful for us, it brings us to the material pool. So Mataji, for us, we have to do handle in which mode? Mode of goodness or handle is in which mode? Mode of goodness, passion and ignorance.
We have to do what? In what mood?
That our anger is in which mode?
Oh, anger. Anger is mode of passion and ignorance, both. It usually arises from the mode of passion, but then when it becomes destructive, then it goes into the mode of ignorance. Right? So if you're just feeling angry, then that's mode of passion. But then as the mode of passion very quickly degrades into ignorance. So then let's say somebody does something and it makes you angry. So then that's mode of passion coming up, that you're getting like this and all intense and like that, right? That's the mode of passion. But then you go and pick up something and throw it on the floor and break it. That's the mode of ignorance. Or if you hit them, then that's the mode of ignorance, because the mode of ignorance is destruction, anything destructive. So the feeling of anger is mode of passion, but the actions of anger result in the mode of ignorance. Okay. So try not to get angry. Unless you're getting angry like Hanuman, right? When Ravana was offending Lord Ram, and then he became angry and he burnt Lanka to ashes. Well, he set it on fire. So that's okay. If you're in the service of the Lord, you can be angry, but otherwise, don't get angry. To control that urge. Daya Lohana. Daya Lohana, are you there? You look frozen. Maybe her internet connection got bad. Let's go with Seema.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji,
Oops.
I have to ask question from verse number 2.3. Here is mentioned that Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, but still he was agitated. And also Haridas Thakur was not agitated by the Maya Devi. So like here I was confused at Lord Shiva. He is always meditating upon Vishnu. Still he is agitated by the Maya Devi. Maya Devi. How?
Yeah, because actually the position of the devotees, position of a pure devotee is higher than a demigod. Position of pure devotees is more exalted than a demigod. And sometimes also see Lord Shiva, he's also a pure devotee. Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu, it says that Lord Shiva is the best of devotees. So Lord Shiva is also a devotee. But the thing is that sometimes Krishna uses his devotees to show how dangerous Maya is, right? That if Maya can even bewilder Lord Shiva, then what to speak of us? So he shows that even great demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma are placed into illusion sometimes by the Lord's Maya. So therefore we need to be very, very careful and always be chanting Hare Krishna and getting good association, taking shelter of Krishna to protect ourselves from Maya. Okay. But the Lord also in that pastime, he also wanted to show that the position of a devotee like Haridas Thakur, who's constantly chanting the holy names, that's the highest position, especially in this age of Kali Yuga, because the Yuga Dharma is Harinam Sankirtan, always chanting the holy names and showing that the holy names will protect us, even from Maya Devi personified. We just need to keep chanting. Okay. All right. Oh, what happened to did she go away? I guess she logged out. Maybe the internet was really bad. Okay, so we'll have more questions later. In the meantime, we will pick up where we left off. We were on text 67. Yeah, we talked about peace and happiness. So please turn to 267. Now Krishna is going to, he's going to continue warning us about the dangers of the uncontrolled mind and uncontrolled senses. And he's going to teach us how we need to keep the boat of our spiritual lives on course. So someone please read 67 and 68.
Mataji, may I?
Yes.
67. As the strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the Roman senses on which the mind focuses can carry away man's intelligence. 68. Therefore, O mighty armed one whose senses are restrained from their objects, its certainty of steady intelligence.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So if you have a boat and you're on the sea, then you have a destination, right? You're going somewhere. You see any boat there out on the sea, it's going somewhere. It has some destination to reach. And there's also a captain, and he has a crew. And so the captain and the crew, they have to be very vigilant. They have to be very careful to keep the boat always going in the right direction. But even though the captain might be very skilled and qualified, but if a very strong wind comes, like a hurricane force wind, still the boat is going to be blown off course. So that's the situation here in the material world. This material world is compared to a vast ocean, the ocean of repeated birth and death. And this human form of life is compared to a boat. It's a nice boat for crossing over this dangerous ocean. And the destination is the spiritual world, right? Our destination is back home, back to Godhead. And then who is the captain of our ship? It's the spiritual master. And his instructions are also compared to the favorable breezes. So this ship is a sailing ship, right? It has the sails and they need to catch the wind. And the wind, this gentle wind, favorable wind, is the instructions of the spiritual master that push our boat along. But the senses and the urges of the senses are like storms on the sea, which, make the water become very rough and wavy, which rock the boat. And sometimes those winds also become very strong and can blow our boat off the path, off the spiritual path. And yeah, Krishna says here that if even one of the senses gets too much attracted to a particular sense object, then we can be completely distracted from our spiritual lives. So then the question is how to prevent this, right? How to keep the boat on course. And so what we need to do is always take shelter of Krishna. We can't control the wind, and we can't always even control our own minds, right? And sometimes we can't even control our own senses. But both of them, the mind, the senses, and the wind, can all be controlled very easily by Krishna. Because Krishna is the supreme controller of everything. So when we engage our senses in the activities of devotional service, we engage our minds also in devotional service, and then we please the Lord. And then Krishna reciprocates with our efforts to please him by helping us to control our mind and senses. And that way he protects us from spiritual fall down, like we heard about yesterday. So really, we just need to stay connected to Krishna, always take shelter of Krishna, and trust in his protection, and we can be peaceful and happy and keep the boat going in the right direction. So, yeah. That's what Prabhupada is saying here in the purport to text 68. He says, one can curb the forces of sense gratification only by means of Krishna consciousness, or engaging all the senses in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As enemies are curbed by superior force, the senses can similarly be curbed not by any human endeavor, but only by keeping them engaged in the service of the Lord. One who has understood this, that only by Krishna consciousness is one really established in intelligence, and that one should practice this art under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, is called a sadhaka, or a suitable candidate for liberation. So that's very clear, right? We need to take shelter of Krishna, follow the instructions of Guru, and everything will be all right. Okay. All right. So far, Krishna's been kind of contrasting the situation of devotees and non-devotees. And now he's going to summarize all of his instructions on this matter. So let's read text 69. Someone?
Mataji, may I?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Text number 69. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-control, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage.
Thank you. Yeah, so Krishna here is making this important point that material and spiritual life are as different as night and day. Material life is like the nighttime, and spiritual life is like the daytime. So materialistic people, they're in the illusion that this material body is all in all, right? I am this material body. The goal of life is to enjoy my senses. And so they avoid religion. They don't like religion because religion seems to restrict their sense enjoyment, right? In any religion, there are some prohibitions, right? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, like that in Christianity. And then we have no meat, no fish, no eggs, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. So materialistic people don't like these things because they're thinking the goal of life is sense enjoyment, and these religions are blocking my sense enjoyment. So I don't want religion. I'd rather be an atheist. So, but spiritual people are the opposite. They know that we are spirit souls, and they, instead of avoiding religion, they avoid sense gratification. because they see that the sense gratification is blocking their spiritual advancement. Right? So materialists, their goal is sense gratification, and they see spiritual life as blocking their sense gratification, so they reject it. Whereas spiritual people, the goal of life is the spiritual world, and they see material sense enjoyment as blocking their spiritual advancement, so they reject it. You see, it's totally the opposite. So these are the two different ways to live in this world. And so the scriptures say, don't stay in the darkness, go to the light. Because in the dark, we can't see where we're going. And if you can't see where you're going, then you don't know which way to go. You don't know where to turn. If you're walking in a dark room, you might bump into something, you might trip over something because you don't see it. You can hurt yourself. So we shouldn't stay in the darkness, just wasting our lives in sense gratification. We need to switch on the lights. So spiritual master teaches us where is the light switch, how to turn on the lights. That you just enter the room and you reach your hand over on that side of the wall, a little bit up, there's the switch, ding. Ah, now I can see everything. So that switching on the lights is when we begin devotional service. In the beginning of the Nectar devotion, Prabhupada says that bhakti or devotional service is the one switch that lights up everything everywhere. In other words, it doesn't just give us, a small light in one part of the room, but it lights up our whole life. Devotional service puts light on everything, on our family life, on our career life, on our school life, on our relationship life, on everything. So, yeah, we should be in the light. And actually, yeah, ultimately it's Krishna. When Krishna is happy with our endeavors to please him, then he turns on the light. And then we can see everything clearly. We can see who we are. I'm a spirit soul. I'm a servant of Krishna. I can understand what is my purpose. My purpose is to purify myself of all of my conditioning, free myself from these material attachments, and get back home where I belong in the spiritual world. And we can understand very clearly the process to get there, right? The process is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna, serving Krishna, worshiping the deity, right? And then as we start following that process and making positive steps towards our destination, then we naturally give up all the activities that impede our progress, and we adopt new activities that accelerate our progress. We make new friends. We might give up our old friends who are, materialistic, and we make new friends who are trying to be devotees or practicing Krishna consciousness. And before we know it, we notice that our lives are very different, right? Whereas we used to be that materialistic person, now we're totally different. And we'll notice that our lives are out of sync, you can say, with the rest of the world, right? The more you become Krishna conscious, the more you start feeling like, oh my God, I'm very different from everybody else on this planet, right? So that's what Krishna is saying. He's kind of like saying, yeah, for the self-controlled, for the introspective sage, your life is just the opposite of everybody else out there in the world who is not trying to be a devotee. So he's kind of being he's reassuring us that, yeah, people are going to think you're different, and you're going to think that they're different, and that's okay. That's just what it is. So don't try to just fit in with the crowd. Don't try to just go with the flow and be mainstream, as they say. You're going to have a different life. And some people might look at you and they might think you're crazy. They might think you're strange. Don't worry about it. That's just natural. It's actually a good sign. It actually shows that we're making some advancement, right? If we're thinking differently from everybody else in the world, if we're thinking differently from materialistic people, that's good. That means we're no longer a materialistic person. Okay. Yeah. So in the this verse is true in the literal sense and also in the figurative sense. In the literal sense, sometimes the time that devotees are waking up in the morning is a time that materialistic people are going to sleep. Like when I was living in London, the temple, there's Bhaktivedanta Manor, which is in the country. There's also a temple in the middle of London city center. And it's on a street called Soho Street, which is right in the middle of they say the red light district, where there's all these clubs and bars and restaurants and theaters and things. So when I was living there, the temple was on a street, and on one side of the temple there was a bar, and on the other side of the temple there was another bar. Literally, we were sandwiched between two bars. And so we would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, get ready for Mangalarti, and people from the bars were just going home. Bar was just closing, and you could see people were out on the street yelling and talking loud and laughing, and you could hear the breaking glass when they're dropping their beer glasses on the asphalt, and it was just madness. And then we were waking up and taking a shower, putting on clean clothes, tilak, and going down, paying our obeisances. Samsara Dava Nalalita Loka. And you can still hear them screaming outside. And then by the time japa starts, they're all gone. They're gone home. They went to sleep. So literally the time that we wake up is the time that they're going to bed. They're getting ready to go home and go to sleep. So that's a literal sense. And the time that we go to sleep, like 8:30, 9 p.m., they're just coming alive. For them, they're just going out of their house, going out to, eat, drink, and be merry. So, and then in the figurative sense, that that for materialistic people, they're living in darkness. They're in the darkness of ignorance. But devotees are in the mode of goodness, which is illuminating. Right? Krishna, Surya, Sama, Maya, Haya, Andhikara, that Krishna is like the sun and Maya is like the darkness. And wherever there is Krishna, there can be no darkness, no Maya. So it's a very nice verse. Okay, let's read. Oh, yes, hand up by Krishna Priya.
My Krishna Mataji, I want to ask a question. If spiritual reality, we are talking about this verse. So if spiritual reality is already night for the worldly people, then how is it, as you were mentioning about the atheists too? So how is it possible to explain them about our like spirituality as a light? Because as you mentioned that they some are aware about the rules and regulation and they don't want to take spirituality because they are afraid that they will bound us with the rules and regulations. So even it is very difficult to distribute them a book or prasadam so that they can somehow become Krishna consciousness. So how is it possible in a very simple way so that we can explain them that spirituality is a light instead of darkness?
Yeah. Well, the best way is that, see, the material world is designed to make people frustrated. So sometimes we have to wait until those kinds of people are frustrated, until they're going through some suffering, right? Because while they're just thinking that they can enjoy in the material world, if we say, oh no, that's bad, you shouldn't do it, you should start chanting, then they're not going to believe us. They're going to be like, no, you're just being like sour grapes. So just because you don't have a wife or a husband, or just because you don't have money, or then you don't know how to be happy. But you should learn from me how to be happy. I'll show you, right? They'll be proud like that. But material happiness has a beginning and an end. And so when that happiness comes to an end and they're left with just disappointment and frustration, then that's a very favorable time for us to give them some Krishna consciousness, right? We can talk about the nature of this world. It's dukkhalayam ashashvatam, right? It's temporary and full of misery. But there's another way, there's another world, and there's a way of life which is not frustrating, which is never disappointing, which is illuminating and blissful and ecstatic, and and that happiness doesn't come to an end because it's spiritual, and spiritual things are eternal. And then they get interested. Oh, really? I never have to experience heartbreak and disappointment again. and then they might get interested. Or you can just try to convince them that the happiness that we feel in Krishna consciousness is higher. Like, okay, you enjoy going out and eating at restaurants and going to the bar and drinking or going to watch movies or whatever you do for fun. But, that's a low grade enjoyment. Okay, there's some pleasure there, but it's limited. It's limited and it's temporary. It's never completely satisfied, right? After you eat, you're full. You can only eat so much. And then if you eat more after that, you get a stomach ache. And even after you eat nice food, you're always thinking, okay, let me try another restaurant. How about that one? Maybe it's better, right? We're never satisfied with our sense enjoyment. But there's a level of happiness that's totally different category of happiness, which you probably never tried, which is called spiritual happiness, right? Brahma Sokyam, it's spiritual happiness, which lasts forever. You never, like, in America, people were in the 60s, people were taking a lot of drugs and they were finding happiness through getting high, right? And so the devotees were advertising, stay high forever. Because when people take drugs, they get some artificial feeling of happiness, but then after a few hours, it goes down and they just crash. And then they feel worse than they did before, right? So the devotees would advertise, people liked getting high, but they didn't like having to come down and have that crash. So then devotees are advertising, stay high forever. This is the high that you're looking for, which you'll never have to come down from. So we just need to convince them that that there's a higher happiness. There's a higher taste, which you're going to enjoy better than any restaurant, better than any drink, better than any, romantic relationship, better than any movie or drama or whatever sports, match, whatever happiness you get from that. It's much higher happiness and you never have to come down from it. So that's powerful preaching. Because basically everybody is Ananda Maya Vyasat. Everyone is searching for happiness because that's really the birthright of the soul. As souls, we are made for happiness. We're meant to be happy, right? We are literally Satchit Ananda. That's our constitutionally, the soul is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. So if we're not happy, there's something wrong. And that's why everyone's searching for happiness because they're thinking, what's wrong? I need to be happy. Right? If you see some small child crying, you'll go up to them and say, what's wrong? Right? What happened? What's wrong? Because something's wrong. If you're not happy, something's wrong. Because as souls, we're meant to be happy. So we have that sense. We have that just innate sense that I should be happy. And that's true. But it's just that we're looking for happiness. People are looking for happiness in the wrong places. And so they're just getting burnt and frustrated and disappointed. But when we look for happiness in Krishna, Krishna is Rama. He's the reservoir of all pleasure. He's the source of happiness. So if we look for happiness in the source of happiness, we're going to get so much happiness. And the more we connect everything else in our life to Krishna, the more we'll be happy in everything that we do. So we can explain to people like that.
Thank you, Mataji.
Gitika.
हरे कृष्ण माता जी धन्य प्रणाम माता जी मेरा I have a question माता जी how to tackle the questions like how to tackle the situations that our family are doing with us. They are like they are saying this is not the right age, you are doing bhakti at that age, this is not the age, this is this is your time to do study or job or etc. And you are hurting us by doing this, and you will not get Krishna by doing this. You are hurting us, you are hurting your parents. How will you get Krishna? So how
Mm.
we tackle them?
Yeah, that's pretty hard. Difficult situation when the parents are putting a whole emotional guilt trip on you. So one time a reporter asked Srila Prabhupada that, Swamiji, why is it that all of your followers are young people? And Srila Prabhupada said, why is it that all of the people in your universities are young people. And then she didn't say anything. She was just thinking. And then Prabhupada said, because this is the age of education. Right? So the time for education is when you're young. So when people say that this is not the time for Krishna consciousness, that's wrong, because Krishna consciousness means education, right? Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam. That this is the king of education. This is the Raja Vidya. This is the best education. This is the highest education. It's the culmination of all knowledge, the topmost knowledge. So, yeah. And it doesn't mean that by cultivating Krishna consciousness that you can't do other things, right? You can be a devotee and chant your 16 rounds, take Bhakti Shastri, and you can also go to school and do your homework, or you can also go to work and do your duties at work. You can also have a family and raise your children, but you do all that in Krishna consciousness. And you're learning now. So side by side, learning whatever subjects you have to learn for your education, your career. You're also learning Krishna consciousness. You're learning how to live a spiritual life, how to balance your material and spiritual lives. So you just have to convince your
It's
parents. You just need to tell your parents that, look, I'm going to do my Krishna consciousness and I'm also going to do my school. So don't worry, I'll do everything. Right? What's the difference
and
if I do school well and don't do Krishna consciousness, or I do school well and also do Krishna consciousness? The point is you want me to do school well, right? So you just do your studies very well, and you'll find that if you're the more Krishna conscious you are, the better your education is going to be, because Krishna is going to help you. Right? Like there was one devotee, he was telling me he was in university and he had an exam and he hadn't prepared for the exam at all. He just kind of procrastinated. It wasn't because he was doing devotional service, it's just because he procrastinated. So he didn't study, he wasn't prepared at all. And also he still had all his 16 rounds to chant. And it was already afternoon and the exam was the next day. So he was thinking, all right, should I chant my 16 rounds or should I study for the exam? And then he was like, I'm going to chant 16 rounds. So he just went to a park and he sat on the bench and he was chanting and chanting and chanting. He chanted his 16 rounds from start to finish. And then just when he finished his last round, 16th round, he just finished, a friend of his from his class rode up on his bicycle and stopped and was like, hey, how are you doing? You ready for tomorrow's exam? And then my friend said, he said, actually, I haven't studied at all. I got really busy with other things and I really haven't. And then his friend said, oh, well, if it helps you, I went through all the topics, every item on the curriculum, and I comprised these, I put together these notes. They're really concise. And I looked at all the past exam papers and matched those to the curriculum. And I came up with just the key points that we really need to know for the exam. And he said, I can share those with you if you want. And so my friend was like, yes, please, I'd be really grateful. So he just studied those notes. He spent maybe an hour or two studying the notes. And next day he went and took the exam and he did really well in the exam. So just saying, that's an example how if we prioritize our spiritual life and we just like make Krishna the most important thing, then Krishna makes an arrangement that everything else is going to work out all right. Because Krishna knows our needs. He knows that you need to do well in school. He knows you need to satisfy your family also. He doesn't want you to neglect any of your responsibilities and just, look like a escapist or something. So yeah, just trust Krishna and do the things that your parents want to do and also be Krishna conscious. It's not one or the other. You can do both. I believe in you.
yeah, yeah. And I'm doing this. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Most
Yeah.
of the time, it's like you have to hiding things from them.
Uh-huh.
You have to hide.
That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Sometimes you have to hide. Even yeah. Even Raghunath Das Goswami, his parents didn't like that he was a devotee. He had to hide some things. So that's normal, right? Okay, good. Let's go on. We are reading Yeah, read 70 to 72, please.
Mataji, may
Who
I?
wants? Let's see. Nina has her hand up first.
A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Text 71. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. 72 कहाँ है? Text 72. That is the way of spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So Krishna is saying here that that it's normal that we're going to have material desires. As long as we're in the material world and we have these material bodies, there are going to be material desires. And in fact, he said that this flow of material desires is incessant. Incessant means it never stops, right? These material desires are constantly coming into the mind, just like rivers are constantly flowing into the ocean. But he says that a devotee, pure devotee, is not disturbed. Despite the fact that desires keep coming to the mind, devotee is not disturbed. Why? Because he doesn't act on the desires. They just flow in, he might notice them, and then he just puts his attention back on Krishna. And that way he can always be peaceful. But if some desire comes into the mind and we think, oh, I have this desire, I really want this, I have to go and get it, then we're always going to be anxious and stressed and, overwhelmed, basically, because we can never satisfy all the desires. So better just, we can make a mental note of that desire and then just forget about it. And then gradually, as we keep just neglecting our desires, they go away, right? It's like sometimes you have let's say you're eating outside and there's some dog on the street. So a dog on the street is coming and he's approaching you, he's trying to get your food and he's sitting there and he's staring at you and you're eating, you're ignoring him. Finally, he realizes that you're not going to give him anything and then he goes away, right? Or sometimes some beggars approach you, you're at the train station and they're like begging, and they're bothering you and they're, tapping on you and pulling on your shirt and things. And then when you see, finally, you're just ignoring them, they'll go away. So in the same way, our desires are like that. They're coming to us, they're pulling on us, they're tapping us on the shoulder, they're, pulling us by the shirt, trying to make us follow them and fulfill them. And if we just ignore them, they go away. After a while, it just goes away. Or sometimes I think of it as, if you get a mosquito bite. So mosquito bites you, it itches, right? So you want to itch it. But if you just don't itch it, you just control your mind, control your senses, and resist the urge to scratch that mosquito bite, then after about 30 minutes, it goes away, the itching stops, the bump goes away, and it's gone forever, right? It never bothers you again. But if you itch it, then what happens? It just itches more and more, and you scratch it more, and it itches more, and it'll go on itching for days and days, and you'll keep scratching it. Even you scratch your own skin off, it's bleeding, it still itches. It won't stop itching until you stop scratching it. So that's the nature of material desires. They come, if we just ignore them, they go away. But if we try to fulfill them, they just get worse. They get stronger and stronger. And before you know it, they just take over our whole life.
If
So,
once we, Hare Krishna.
yes.
And if once we try to get satisfied, Like if once we get stretched, our if mosquito bite, first time it's okay, then it's like first time gives relief, and then it's become more worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes my daughter, she would scratch her mosquito bites, and then I would see like on her leg, she would have this big like injury. It looked like she got hurt, it was like just raw and bloody and scabby. And I'm like, what happened? Like, what the heck? What happened to your leg? And she would say, oh, I had a mosquito bite. I'm like, are you crazy? You're gonna kill yourself over a mosquito bite. That's like, anyways, yeah. So don't scratch the mosquito bites of our material desires. Just let them be. Let them go away. Yeah. So in text 71, Krishna says that a person uh, gives up. So in this way, we can give up our desires for sense gratification and live free from desires. So in the purport to that verse, Prabhupada writes, Arjuna did not want to fight for his own sense satisfaction. But when he became fully Krishna conscious, he fought because Krishna wanted him to fight. For himself, there was no desire to fight. But for Krishna, the same Arjuna fought to his best ability. Real desirelessness is desire for the satisfaction of Krishna, not an artificial attempt to abolish desires. The living entity cannot be desireless or senseless, but he does have to change the quality of the desires. So this is important because it says here, free from desires. So what does it mean? The nature of the soul is to have desires, but material desires are unnatural, right? It's unnatural for a spiritual being to have material desires, but it's totally natural for a spiritual being to have spiritual desires. So that means we need to align our desires with Krishna's desire. So in this case, Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight. And at the end of the battlefield, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is also going to want to fight. So now that he wants to fight and Krishna wants him to fight, now they're totally aligned. That's called desirelessness. When he has no separate desire than the desire to serve Krishna. Right? Because the whole reason that we had to come to this material world is because we desired something else, right? We desired to enjoy ourselves separately from Krishna. Krishna wanted to do one thing and we didn't want to do that. We wanted to do another thing. So Krishna's like, okay, if you want to do your own thing, then there's a place where people can try to do their own thing, and that is the material world. So go there and do your own thing. You want to be independent of me? Be free, be independent, go live your independent life without me. So that's why we're here. So now we have to, change the program, right? We have to stop desiring to do our own thing and desire to do Krishna's thing. And how do we know what Krishna wants us to do? We have to learn that from a spiritual master, from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So in Arjuna's case, Krishna wanted him to fight because he was a Kshatriya and there were all these demons that needed to be killed. And Krishna's mission, part of his mission was to kill the demons, to deliver the lies, to annihilate the miscreants, paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya tadrushkritam. So, and he wanted to use Arjuna as his instrument. So in ISKCON, we know one thing is that Srila Prabhupada wanted to spread Krishna consciousness. That was Lord Chaitanya's desire, to spread Krishna consciousness, to spread the holy names to every town and village all over the world. So if we desire to help Srila Prabhupada in his mission, and Lord Chaitanya in his mission of spreading Krishna consciousness, of reaching new people and bringing new people to the temple, distributing prasadam, distributing books, teaching them to chant the holy names. And then that desire is real desirelessness. That's what it means to be free from desires, right? We're free from desire for sense gratification. We're not looking for our own material enjoyment, but we're desiring to please Krishna and make his will our will. And that way we can become peaceful. Because when we desire what Krishna desires, then it all happens very easily because Krishna wants it to happen and he empowers us to do it. It's when we try to do something that Krishna doesn't want us to do, then it gets difficult because then we're on our own, and on our own, we make a lot of mistakes. And we're very limited in our ability to do anything. So we become frustrated because we can never do what we want to do. But as soon as we want to do what Krishna wants to do, then we can actually do it because Krishna empowers us to do it. Just like on his own, Arjuna probably would not have won the battle of Kurukshetra. Bhishma was so much more powerful. Drona was better. He was his teacher. Karna was the best fighter out of all of the Kunti's sons. There was no way they were going to win. They had bigger army, better Kshatriya warriors. They were going to lose. But because they had Krishna, then they were going to win. So at the same time, if we try to do something on our own strength, if we try to do something separately from Krishna, then we're probably going to lose. But even if we're weak, even if we're not so highly educated or not so skilled or whatever our shortcomings may be, if we have Krishna, we're going to win. Right? As soon as we have Krishna, we already won. That's already game over. We already won. And then everything else is just bonus points. Right? Daya? I see you talking and I see that you're unmuted, but I don't hear anything. Maybe your audio is disconnected.
Audible.
Okay, yeah, now it works.
Okay, so Mataji, as you mentioned that we have to desire what Krishna wants us to desire. Like if our desire are the same as Krishna wants, that my question is, how we get to know what is like the things in which we get to know that it is not something Krishna wants me to do. It is something we cannot differentiate the desire. We know very well that Krishna wants us to do this thing. This is Krishna's desire. But there are many things in life we want to do, but we don't know exactly that Krishna want me to do or not. How we get to know this?
Yeah. So then we have to consult. We know the general things. We know that Krishna wants us to chant 16 rounds, follow 4 regs, spread Krishna consciousness, right? Go to temple, associate with devotees, reach Srimad Bhagavatam. Like we know the general things that Krishna wants. But then, yeah, there are many things in life that we do every day, and you might wonder, does Krishna really want me to do this? I don't want to just do my own thing. I don't want to stay in the material world doing my own thing for another lifetime. So I need to stop this business. Yeah, so then if we're not sure, then we can consult. Of course, there's some things that we have to do, right? Like you have to go to market, you have to buy boga, you have to cook, feed your family, but you can connect all that to Krishna. So basically, Krishna wants us to connect things to him. He wants us to connect everything to him. And that's one of the major messages of Bhagavad Gita, is that we don't stop doing things, but we learn the art of connecting everything. We don't reject things, but we connect things. So whatever those things are that you have to do during the day, find a way to try to connect them to Krishna. And even if it's not the best thing to do, but it will get purified by that connection with Krishna. And gradually Krishna will, guide you in such a way as to lead you to a more and more pure lifestyle. Okay. And if you're really in doubt and it's bothering you, you could just ask senior devotees. Okay. All right. So the purport to text 72, Srila Prabhupada starts off saying something very dramatic. He says, one can attain Krishna consciousness or divine life at once, within a second, or one may not attain such a state of life even after millions of births. It is only a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. So, yeah, very interesting, right? We can become Krishna conscious in a second, or we won't become Krishna conscious after millions of births. So, yeah, Krishna is giving us the process here. He's giving us the knowledge. Srila Prabhupada made the process even more clear, how to live a spiritual life, how to be Krishna conscious in this world. And it only takes a second to surrender to Krishna. Krishna, I'm yours. This life is for you. Everything that I have is yours. It's for your service. All of my energy, all of my time, all of my skills, all of my intelligence, whatever I've learned, I want to engage in your service. After all, I'm your eternal servant. There's nothing else for me to do in this world. That literally can be done in a second. And that's the state of Krishna consciousness or divine life. Our lives become divine like that. Or it may not happen after millions of births. It's up to us. What Prabhupada is saying, it's up to us. So sometimes people are lamenting, oh, I'm in so much Maya. Oh, I'll never be Krishna conscious. But Prabhupada is saying, it's up to you, right? Like one time I was at the temple, and then there was this man. I was staying in the temple at the time, so my life was just temple life. And then there was this man who would come sometimes, and then he would go home, go to work, or he would go out. So then one day I was sitting near the entrance and I was talking to a devotee friend, and this man was leaving the temple. So he opened the door. He's holding the door open. He's standing in the threshold of the temple door. And right out there is the street. So the street is, you don't walk out into a parking lot or something. You step out and you're on the street. You know, it's like a city temple. And all people are walking by, cars are driving by. And so he opens the door and he stops and he says, now I'm going back to the material world. And then I looked at him and I said, that's up to you. In other words, stepping out the door doesn't mean that you're necessarily stepping out in into the material world, right? We leave the temple all the time. We go on Harinam, we go on book distribution, we go on food for life. You know, we walk through that door, but we don't go to the material world. We stay in Krishna's service. We remain in the spiritual world. So you know, if you're walking out, I told him, if you walk out that door in material consciousness, thinking, okay, now I'm going to go back to my sense gratification, then yeah. But if you walk out the door with your bead bag on your hand, chanting Hare Krishna and praying to Krishna to use you as an instrument in his service in the world, in whatever you do, then you're not going back to the material world. So it's a question of consciousness, right? And we can change our consciousness in a second. And Prabhupada gives the example of this Maharaj Katvanga. So Maharaj Katvanga, he was a king who fought for years and years for the demigods. He assisted the demigods in one of their battles against the demons. And he was such a good fighter. The demigods won the battle. And they owed a lot of that to the valor of Maharaj Katvanga. So they were very grateful to him. And then Maharaj Katvanga, he was thinking, oh, I'm so tired after this battle. I just want to take rest. But then he happened to meet someone who, you know, was Trikaligya, who had vision of past, present, and future. And Maharaj Katvanga, he said, oh, Maharaj Katvanga, I'm so pleased with how you serve the demigods. Ask me any question. I'll give you the answer to any question whatsoever. So Maharaj Katvanga said, please tell me how much longer I have to live. I want to know, when am I going to die? And then this person said, you have 1 minute. You're going to die in 1 minute. And immediately Maharaj Katvanga was just like, Krishna, Krishna. He just, in his mind, he was just like, Krishna, I'm yours. I'm yours. I'm your servant eternally. I want to do nothing but serve you. I just want to be with you and serve your lotus feet and your servant's life after life. And then boom, he quit his body and went back to Godhead. So that was the perfection, right? Yeah. So we can do that, right? In 1 moment, we can just do it anytime. Okay, let's just pause. We're going to pause for 30 seconds. And in that 30 seconds, you're all going to surrender to Krishna. Ready? Go. Haribol. All right, now if you all die today, you're going back to Godhead. But may you live a long life in Krishna consciousness to serve the Lord. We need more devotees in this world, a lot of work to be done. Okay, so Prabhupada says something, he says here in the end of the purport, he says, before ending this life, if one fortunately becomes Krishna conscious, he at once attains the stage of Brahma Nirvana. There's no difference between the kingdom of God and devotional service of the Lord, since both of them are on the absolute plane. To be engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord is to have attained the spiritual kingdom. So he's saying that if we become fully Krishna conscious, basically, we don't have to wait till we leave this body to go back to Godhead. We're already back to Godhead, right? Back to Godhead is not necessarily a location. It's not like a place. I mean, it is a place, but it's mainly a state of consciousness, right? Prabhupada continues in the purport. If in the material world there are activities of sense gratification, whereas in spiritual world there are activities of Krishna consciousness. Attainment of Krishna consciousness, even during this life, is immediate attainment of Brahman, and one who is situated in Krishna consciousness has certainly already entered into the kingdom of God. Pretty amazing, right? That's the power of Krishna consciousness. Yes, Simal.
Mataji, here in purport, I have to question that Buddha was also incarnation of Vishnu, Krishna. Then
Who?
why
Who was?
Buddha, Lord Buddha?
Oh, Buddha. Yeah.
Yeah. So why Buddhist philosophy is totally different from the teaching of Bhagavad Gita? Like Buddhist philosophy is saying something else and Krishna saying something else. And now people are very perplexed by this, that now as Vaishnava we consider that Buddha is also incarnation of Krishna. Then someone asked me, then why Buddhist philosophy is different from Krishna philosophy?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So yeah, Buddha is an incarnation, but the incarnations of Krishna are not all equally as powerful as Krishna. Some of them are, right? Like Lord Balaram is equally as powerful as Krishna. But Buddha is a partial incarnation. In other words, he's invested with only part of the energies of Krishna. He's not fully, although he's Vishnu Tattva, but he's not fully, he doesn't have all the qualities and all the powers of Krishna. But Krishna invests him with just some of the qualities and powers. That's one thing. The other thing is that Krishna expands himself into these avatars or incarnations for a particular purpose, right? So Buddha, he appeared for a specific purpose, which was to bring people away from the Vedas. Because at that time, it was a moment of history where people were misusing the Vedas like anything. They were taking the Vedic injunctions for sacrifices, which prescribed different kinds of animal sacrifices, like Ashvamedha yagyas, and even they call them Gomedha yagyas. They were even sacrificing horses and sacrificing cows and goats and different animals in these yagyas. And the thing became so perverse. It became so corrupted that they didn't care about the actual purpose of the yajna, which was to please the Lord. They were more interested in just killing the animals and eating them. Basically, the yajnas were turning into like slaughterhouses. And the whole thing was just the opposite of what it should have been. It just became so corrupt and contaminated. So then Krishna was thinking, oh my God, these people, they say they're following the Vedas and they're doing the sinful activities in the name of the Vedas. I need to make them stop with this Vedic nonsense, basically. So then he came down as Buddha and he destroyed people's faith in the Vedas. He took them away from Vedic knowledge, Vedic culture, and he stopped the sacrifices. He made people stop performing all these sacrifices. Okay. So then in order to do that, Buddha had to present a philosophy that was non-Vedic, that basically was, like Prabhupada said, atheistic. So because Buddha preached against the Vedas, then in India, where people were strict followers of the Vedas, he was not accepted. He basically was kind of, philosophy was driven out of India, went to China and other parts, right, of Southeast Asia. There may be a little bit, some minority in India, but not so much. Anyway, so this was all part of a long sequence of events. So see, Buddha took people away from the Vedas and he preached, oh, there's no God, there's no soul, whatever. And then he was successful in making people stop the animal slaughter. Then the next step in that journey was that Shankaracharya came. So Sripad Shankaracharya, he's the head of the Mayavadis. So generally when we say Shankaracharya's name, we don't say with so much respect, right? Because we know that Lord Chaitanya spoke very heavily against these Shankarites and Mayavadi philosophers. But Shankaracharya was actually an incarnation of Lord Shiva, who is a Vaishnava. So you might wonder, why was Lord Shiva preaching Mayavad philosophy? So here's why. Because he was, so all these people that Buddha had taken, Buddha took people away from the Vedas and he was preaching impersonalism, you know, that we're all basically just God, we're all just going to merge into become one and become God in this nirvana, right? The world is false, only spirit is true, there's only one spirit, we're all one. That was Buddha's teaching. So then Shankaracharya, he taught the same thing, the same nirvana kind of thing, that we're all one and material world is illusion. The only truth is the one spirit. But he did it using the Vedas. So he took the Buddhists back to the Vedas. He said, oh yeah, everything that you Buddhists follow, that's right. And the Vedas say that. Here, he interpreted Vedanta Sutra in such a way to support that. So then he brought people back to the Vedas. Okay, then the next step was the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then Lord Chaitanya came and he said, okay, all you Mayavadis, you believe in the Vedas. So yes, there are some parts of the Vedas where it can be interpreted in an impersonal way, but the goal of the Vedas is Krishna. And everybody should actually worship Krishna. And so the whole thing went full circle. So it started with Vedas, everyone worshiping Krishna. Then it got corrupted that people, according to Vedas, were just slaughtering animals. Then it went to, okay, we're going to reject the Vedas, stop slaughtering animals. And now we're impersonalists. Then the Shankaracharya brought the impersonalists back to the Vedas. And then Lord Chaitanya brought the Vedic followers to the actual goal of the Vedas, which is Krishna. So that's why sometimes it's important to have a broad view on history, you know? Because if we just look at any one snapshot, we might think, oh, that person's doing a bad thing, right? But it's a step. It's a step in the sequence. And if you stop prematurely at any one step, then you're not going to get the full thing. But if you follow it through to its conclusion, then you can see that that's a necessary step towards bringing everything back to what it should be. So Buddha was one of the parts. He was one of the steps in the sequence. This was the Lord's plan, which happened over generations. Sometimes these things take time, right? Damni.
Hare Krishna. Buddha came, like he stopped to kill, he asked to stop to kill animals. Just for the
Yeah.
Vedic, or just like he restricted this thing, okay, don't kill.
Yeah, one
Like
of
the one who
Buddha's
believe in
main things
Buddhas
was
yet
nonviolence.
they
Yeah, so these Buddhists, any Buddhists who are non-vegetarian, they're not following Buddha, because one of Buddha's main things was nonviolence. And that was one of his main points, is nonviolence, not killing animals. Everyone should be vegetarian. So yeah, the Buddhists at least should be vegetarians. Otherwise, they're not even Buddhists. They're just, being whimsical in the name of Buddhism. Sunil?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Actually, Mataji, I have a question.
Go ahead.
That you were telling us about sense gratification. So I have a question related to this. Actually, Mataji, sometime we plan to go temple. We usually don't go to the temple in morning programs like in Mangala Aarti. So sometimes we make plans. Actually, my friends, all my friends, I want to gather when we go to the temple. So we make a plan that we will go to the cricket after Mangalarti, and we will play cricket. So I want to ask, is it a step toward Krishna consciousness, or it's a part of sense gratification?
The cricket game after Mangalarti?
Yes, yes,
Post Mangalarti cricket game.
yes. Because
And then what happens?
we try to call them, they don't pick up the call. But when we text them that after Mangalarti we will go for the cricket, and then everybody is excited and they come to the Mangalarti.
Okay, so it's a transcendental trick.
Yeah. So I want to ask, is it a step towards Krishna consciousness, or it's a part of sense gratification?
Well, it's kind of like a bait. You know, like you put the worm on the hook to catch the fish. So the cricket is the worm, you know? You're using that cricket as a worm to bring them to Mangalarti, bring them to the temple, then that's good. But hopefully they'll get a higher taste and they'll come to Mangalarti and they'll see that after Mangalarti, all the devotees sit down and chant japa, and one day they'll be like, well, let's try chanting japa with the devotees, and we can play cricket later after breakfast or something, you know. So it's good. It's all good. Better that they go to Mangalarti and then play cricket than just sleep until 6 o'clock and just get up and go play cricket. Right? They're going to play cricket anyway because they're attached to playing cricket. So then just use that attachment to engage them in Krishna's service. That's smart. That's a good strategy. But then I hope that you're getting your japa done. Because you're sacrificing your japa period to go play cricket with these people. Right?
Mataji, actually, we also have japa session, but sometime because somebody goes to the job, somebody goes to their own businesses, so we don't get much time to japa in the early morning. So actually, we do japa at our job or at our businesses.
Okay. All right. Not the best thing, but at least try to be attentive when you chant your japa.
Yes.
Anyways, you have to do what you have to do. In the beginning stages of Krishna consciousness, it's not going to be perfect, but whatever you can manage to do is for your benefit. Okay. Barka.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I had a question that I'll just go back to that question, like where we said that Krishna should be the center of all of our material duties too. For example, if I'm going to work, I should think that I'm doing it for Krishna. It's an offering to Krishna. I'm doing a job. For example, I'm doing a job to get a home so that I can chant peacefully there. However, throughout that process, the mind gives us doubt. Like, are you actually doing it for Krishna, or you are doing it for your own, your own benefit? You want a house, that's it. So these type of doubts come, and we actually forget our purpose. That why did we start the job? So I want to know how to get rid of those questions, because sometimes it's actually a fallback to the spiritual life at like, oh my God, I'm not doing this for Krishna. And then I feel down.
Well, you just have to keep reminding yourself, whenever those doubts come up, are you really doing this for yourself or are you doing it for Krishna? No, I'm doing it for Krishna. And then you tell Krishna, Krishna, please know that I'm doing this for you. And, if somehow my effort to do this for you is a little bit tinged by, desire for my personal sense gratification, just take away that desire for sense gratification and make it purely for you. You can ask Krishna like that. And then when you know without a shadow of a doubt that it's for Krishna and only for Krishna, then the doubts stop coming. Of course, when we do things for Krishna, we also benefit, right? It's like Prabhupada would say, you cook a sumptuous feast for Krishna, you offer it to Krishna, and then after, who's going to eat the same food? You are.
Yeah.
Build a beautiful temple for Krishna, for his pleasure. Who's going to go to that temple? You are. So when we serve Krishna, we also benefit, but we're not doing it for the benefit. When we're cooking, we're not thinking, oh, I'm going to make all my favorite preparations and I'm going to enjoy eating these, but I'll just first offer it to Krishna. So it's about our consciousness, right? The activity is the same. So we have to just keep reminding ourselves that I'm really doing this for Krishna. And I know it's going to benefit me too, but I want to do it for Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
All right, Bina.
Mataji, my question is that how to control our mind. Like mind function is cognitive thinking, analytical, but sometimes like here now I'm listening the lecture. After 2 hours, I will think that I'm feeling great. I am in Krishna consciousness. But when we go to the materialistic world, like we are living with a family, and anything that triggers you, you forget your goal and you think negatively. So how to just keep mind focusing on that, like using it positively.
Mhm. Yeah, it helps to, as Vaisheshika Prabhu would say, keep the transcendental vibration flowing, right? Like now we're discussing Bhagavad Gita, so the transcendental vibration is flowing. And as long as that vibration is flowing, everyone's feeling good, right? We're all feeling like, oh, this is so nice, like bathing in nectar, right? But then as soon as you leave the class, a Zoom meeting closes, everybody's looking at their blank computer screen and, oh, right? Now what am I going to do? So it's a little bit like that, right? Especially if you're living with family members who are not devotees. So to whatever extent is possible, we need to keep it flowing, right? Keep some bhajan or kirtan playing in the background, some background music, or in your mind, at least if you can't chant out loud, in your mind you can be chanting, or just go remembering something that you heard in the class that struck you, and just go thinking about that. Or if you can share with somebody else. Oh, in class today I learned this, or I had this really amazing realization or something. And the more we go on hearing and chanting and talking about these things, then the more that good feeling that you get, that good, refreshing, uplifting Krishna conscious feeling stays with us throughout the whole day. And even if you're not with somebody, you could, you have a devotee friend, you just open up your WhatsApp on your phone and press the record button and you say, oh, today in class, Prabhupadapriya Mataji made this point and I wanted to share it with you, and just say what it is to some random friend out there. It doesn't matter who it is. Just say it for the sake of saying it, for your own Krishna consciousness. And then maybe they reply with, oh, that was interesting. I maybe remember this, something that somebody said in a class. And then you start a whole spiritual discussion like that. Somehow or other, just keep hearing, keep sharing, keep discussing, keep meditating and thinking about it. And, you know, you'll be fine. Hari Priya Radha.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Mataji, like when we come in Krishna consciousness, in our early days, it seems to spark our curiosity in Krishna consciousness. So like we found it more interesting, and we lose our interest in studies in our initial days because we have very much enthusiasm. It's new for us, and it's like very, very interesting. So how to like again build that interest in our studies? Because it's also our duty, here we are speaking about duties of Arjuna, so it's also our duty to make our future better. So yeah, how to make a comeback in our studies with steady Krishna conscious or steady sadhana.
Yeah, so the thing is that sometimes we think that we know everything, right? I read Bhagavad Gita. I know this song, I know that song, I know this prayers, and I know some tunes on the harmonium. I know how to play mridanga. I'm good. I'm a pure devotee, right? That's what we call pure devotee syndrome. That usually kicks in after 6 months, 1 year, maybe 2 years of Krishna consciousness. I'm a pure devotee. I know so many shlokas, so many songs. I even know how to say the Prema Dwani prayers. Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parirajikacharya Astu Tarasat Shri Srimad. See what a good devotee I am. Right. So, but that's really just, we're just scratching the surface, right? We have the externals. We know how to put on a dhoti, put on a sari, make it very beautiful, perfect tilak. That's just external. After that, what comes is a lot of deep excavation of the heart. Right? So, um, it's nice that we feel good about what we've learned and what we can do and how far we've gone, but we should always know that there's so much farther to go. Right? This is just the beginning of the journey. And also, it's even just the beginning of understanding, right? Like Bhagavad Gita, even when we reading it, we need to keep reading it again and again. We never know it completely. Each verse has millions of meanings, and we can't access it on the first reading because we can only enter as deeply as we're qualified. Right? It's like if you're going scuba diving. Scuba diving, you go to the ocean and you put the oxygen tank on your back and you go underwater with the flippers and the mask and everything. So you can only go as deep as your tank will allow. You have a tank on your back and only has this small tank. You can only go like so deep. And when the oxygen runs out, you need to go up to breathe again. But if you have a big tank, then you can go deeper. And if you have like a big tank and an extra tank, you can go way down to the bottom, right? So like that, when we first come to read Bhagavad Gita, it's like we don't have any tank at all. We're just on the surface, right? We're just on the surface and breathing and reading and breathing. And then next time we breathe, it's like now Krishna gives us a tank. Now we can go a little deeper. And then he gives us a bigger tank, deeper. So each time we read it, we can go, Krishna gives us the ability, the qualification to go deeper and deeper and find out. And we realize more and more that's Krishna's giving here in the Bhagavad Gita, and same with Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Krishna is unlimited and knowledge of Krishna is unlimited, and we are very small and very limited in our intelligence. So even if we go on studying for a lifetime, we're never going to get to the end of the transcendental knowledge available in our shastras and in the realizations that we can have in bhakti.
Maji, I'm talking about studies, material studies, academics.
Oh, material studies.
Yeah, that seems a bit boring. Just got more interest in
Oh, I see.
and like Krishna consciousness seems more interesting. So that's why I'm talking about that. We just lose interest in our academics. That's also important.
Yeah, that happens.
How to prioritize that thing also.
Okay, sorry, I totally misunderstood your question. Anyways, what I said was also good. So, yeah, that happens. As more we get interested in spiritual life, more we become disinterested in anything material, right? We don't want to read our textbooks and things. So, anyways, that's just you just have to do what you have to do, right? That's part of our duties. So then we just do that, and we're like, okay, Krishna, this is not so tasteful as reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, but this is also a service that I have, and so I'm going to do this as a service for you. Right? It's like sometimes even in Krishna consciousness, sometimes you have to sometimes you're in a kirtan, ecstatic kirtan, and other times you're down in the kitchen peeling potatoes or something, right? You just do what you have to do. You may not like peeling potatoes, but it's just one of those things. You just do it, and you do it for Krishna, and you're happy because you're doing it for Krishna. So the same thing. Sometimes you're in Bhakti Shastri class, sometimes you're in school reading some mundane textbook. Whatever you do it, whatever you're doing, you do for Krishna, and be happy remembering Krishna and doing it for Krishna. That's all. And don't worry, hopefully this will be the last life you have to read mundane textbooks. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right then. Jai. So let's go on to chapter 3. Let me just drink some water. Ay, ay. Okay. Oh, Jatin has a question.
Mataji, from this chapter 2, the learnings we got were somewhere around Krishna consciousness. Like, if we look, the moral or crux of whole this chapter is to get ourselves into Krishna consciousness. So for that, initially I have a question that I have various questions. I have compiled those somewhat. First, the atheistic thoughts are coming when once a person is taking a dip towards Krishna consciousness. So there are coming questions, various kind of questions. Some are atheistic, some are Mayavadi, and blah blah. So should we do question those things, or should we keep our blind trust? Secondly, coming into Krishna
Wait a sec.
consciousness,
This atheistic Mayavad questions are coming from like other people or coming from your own mind?
own mind, like, am I doing right thing, or is this the right path, or something like, or maybe what if this, or because the thing we are learning right now, or I am learning right now, is somewhat transformation in my life, what I have done in my previous 16, 17, 18, or whatever years of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is something else, because being in Pakistan, we have a Muslim friends. We are going usually hanging out with them, eating foods, whatever they eat, and all activities, everything, whatever, blah blah. So that is complete, as you mentioned, like change your friends, come into devotional service, and make be friends with devotees, share things and all that. That would be a transformation of our lives. It is a difficult path or task to shift from one track onto another, and it would be a whole transformation of our life. The third thing I want to ask is, like, about the desires. You mentioned two kinds of desire, spiritual desire and material desire. Although there was a question regarding the distinguishment between them, but I was curious, like, how to, like, if I want to satisfy my own self, I can consider a material desire, spiritual desire, like this desire is spiritual desire just for my own self-satisfaction. The third thing you mentioned is like, the things with Krishna will lead to success. So considering ourselves, we all are students doing our studies, or some have completed their studies, looking for the future studies, masters, PhD, blah blah, these things. So like, should we, like, listening to all these things or attending the class, the things trigger us, like, does the education I am going to pursue in my future, is it okay with what my religion is demanding, or I should quit everything and be lane into the something else other than my regular life. So like, if I am doing my continuing my regular life with Krishna, I will get success. And what if I am continuing my regular life just in the normal way as it is, I am doing it, I have done in my previous life, and continuing it my future life.
Okay, that's a lot of different things. So first of all, about the doubts, right? You come into Krishna consciousness, your mind is like, you know, is this really true? What about these other things? Or how do I know if this is the right path, right? Like that. So then Prabhupada would say that doubt is a sign of intelligence, right? The fact that your mind is questioning the philosophy, questioning the practices, that's a sign of intelligence. It means that you're basically not a stone. You're a thinking, intelligent thinking human. So that's good. So when these doubts come up, then you need to ask questions, right? You need to clarify. If you have some previous philosophical understanding which is different, then speak to senior devotees and be like, oh, this is what I have believed my whole life. This is what I was taught by my parents, or this is what my friends say. Now I'm coming to Krishna consciousness. I'm very confused. Can you help me to resolve these things? And the beauty about Krishna consciousness is, it's not sectarian in the sense that the principles of Krishna consciousness are, in the basic fundamental principles, are common really with any bona fide religion, right? Like any religion, there's going to be some form of giving up something, giving up sense gratification, some sense of self-discipline, restricting oneself in certain ways so that we don't degrade. There's a concept of sinful activities, right? That we don't do those sinful activities. And then there's a concept of pious activities, that we things that God wants us to do, right? And they have a common goal, which is that we're trying to love God, we're trying to serve God, we're trying to worship God, and realizing that we're subordinate to Him. So these are all very common principles of any faith. What's different is more like the details, right? Just the way that we do it. Like the Muslims, they're going to offer their prayers to Allah 5 times a day. We chant Hare Krishna 16 rounds a day. It's like the idea is that we're praying to God. We're calling out the holy names. We're glorifying Him. We're expressing our devotion to Him through prayer or through song. So these things are common. It's just the details are different. And as far as the philosophical points like impersonalism or yoga things, so there are different levels, right? Everyone's approaching God, and some are realizing Him on one level, some are realizing Him on another level. So impersonalists, they're realizing the lowest level, which is God is all pervasive, God is everything. We're spirit, I am spirit, God is spirit, we're all spirit, we're all one kind of thing, right? So there is a sense in which that is true, right? We are spirit, God is spirit, we are qualitatively the same, we're all Satchit Ananda, we're all eternal, cognizant beings, same way as God is. But then quantitatively we're different, right? He's great, we're small. So they understand some portion of our philosophy, but they don't understand the whole thing. It's a partial understanding. And then as they advance, then they're going to realize that, oh, this all-pervasive spiritual energy of which I am a part and which of God is also God, that God also has a separate existence than that. That's just His, like Krishna says, Mayam tatam idam sarvam jagat avyaktamurtinam. That, yeah, by me and my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. But there's a person, Krishna, who has an unmanifested form that pervades everything. So then when they advance, then they come to understand Krishna. So yeah, these often doubts come up because there's a difference between those who have a partial understanding and those who have a little more understanding, and those who have a complete understanding. And it looks different. It almost looks a little contradictory. One's saying God is all pervading, and the other saying, no, God is a person. But the fact is that God is a person who, in another form, pervades everything. Right? So Krishna consciousness is like the overarching understanding that basically integrates everything. And the more we understand it, the less we have doubts, because we understand how it accommodates practically all the other religions. Of course, there are some so-called religions that are just totally just deviant or concocted, or, so those, we need to know the difference. Like Srimad Bhagavatam says that we need to distinguish reality from illusion. There's some things that are just Maya, that people take to be religion. People in the mode of ignorance, they take irreligion to be religion. So, but when we come to the mode of goodness, we can see all these things very clearly. Okay, so that's about doubts. Then you were asking about, oh gosh, I don't have a good memory. Something about education. Oh, whether we should continue education, get master's degree, PhD, or stop and just shave your head and become a brahmachari or something. Basically, right? Okay. Shave the head, shave the beard, join the temple. Well, I mean, that's up to you. So there's different styles of practicing Krishna consciousness. And basically, it just depends on what you're ready for. And the way I've seen it is that different people have different callings. You know, those who decide to join the temple and become brahmacharis and later, you know, take sannyas, just dedicate themselves to traveling and preaching, they have this internal calling, you know, that this is what I want to do with my life. Like, I don't want to mess around with mundane education, with working for some materialistic boss, some employer. I just want to work for Krishna. I just want to be with the devotees. I just want to serve Krishna with devotees. I don't want to do anything else. I have absolutely no interest, and I don't need a big house. I don't need money. I just need a little 6-foot bed in some corner of the room, some prasadam, and just let me serve. Right? I just want to sit down peacefully and chant my rounds during japa. I don't want to have anything else to do. So, you know, there are people who feel like that, very strongly like that. And then there are other people that are like, okay, I appreciate that's a fantastic way to live life. I admire those who do it. But for myself, I feel I have a different path. My path is different. You know, I want to establish myself in the world. I want social respectability. And I feel like I can use that in Krishna consciousness, right? I can become a highly educated person, and due to my position, my material position, I can become more of an influencer. You know, people will listen to me because I have a PhD, because I have a high position, because I have like a government post or something like that, whatever it is. Now people are going to sit there and be quiet and listen to me. And then we can, in more indirect ways, we can give Krishna consciousness, because not everybody's going to listen to a brahmachari. A lot of people are going to think the brahmacharis are just crazy. Why would I do that? Why would I go that way? But if you're like a, you know, PhD, you're like a corporate executive, you know, a CEO of some huge international corporation, people are going to listen to you. Those people that won't listen to a brahmachari are going to listen to you. And you can preach very powerfully. And you have, if you have the intelligence to give them the medicine in a way that they can swallow it. You know, sometimes you have to sugarcoat it, but that requires some intelligence. You don't, you know, go into a corporate executive, you know, function where you're a speaker and be like, all right, everyone has to surrender to Krishna and stop with this meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, and chant 16 rounds. You're not going to say that. You know, you're going to present it differently. But in a very intelligent and stealthy way, you're going to give them Krishna consciousness. So there's different kinds of people. See, the thing is, there's all different kinds of people out there in the world who need Krishna consciousness, and they're all different kinds of devotees. So devotees who are practicing one way, they can reach one type of people. Devotees who are practicing another way, they can reach another type of people. So we need all kinds of devotees to reach all kinds of people. And it's not that one type of devotee is better than another type of devotee. That depends on your internal state of Krishna consciousness, not what you wear, not your haircut, not your, you know, what you do from 9 to 5. That doesn't matter. The important thing is your Krishna consciousness, and that you surrender to Krishna and pray to Krishna to use you as his instrument. And then whether Krishna wants you to be a sannyasi or a college professor or a corporate, you know, manager, that's up to Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhupadapriya?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to just
Now
kind
he's
of,
going to defend
like,
the brahmacharis. Okay, go ahead.
no, wait. Come on, just let me.
Sorry, I'm always teasing you. I shouldn't tease you. You're a
there
senior devotee.
no. There is a big misplaced notion, at least in Pakistan, about there's like, you know, like a superhuman aspect of somebody being a sannyasi. There's a sannyas fad, and I have to really deal with it. Maybe you can speak about it. Real sannyas fad. Who is a sannyasi, and somebody is a sannyasi, then, like, you know, it's just like, you know, there's somebody out from he's coming from Mars, basically. So I just want you raked up that topic. Yeah, please, you know, really, now they've raked up the topic rocket.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to speak more about this when we get to, later chapters in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna literally talks about sannyas, and he talks about the difference between renunciation, tyag, and detachment, which is actually, yeah, he talks about the difference between tyag and sannyas. He talks about the difference between renunciation and detachment, and that it's not an external thing, right? He literally says that better is the person who works in Krishna consciousness without attachment to the results, but actually works in this world, is very active within the world, than that person who lights no fire, right? Who literally who just kind of rejects the world and goes off and absorbs theirself in some monastic life, like that. So Krishna's in favor of working, actually. And that's what he's telling Arjuna. He's not telling Arjuna, go join the brahmachari ashram then. If you don't want to fight, that's good. Go join the brahmachari ashram and, you can gradually, take sannyas and become a traveling priest. He doesn't tell that to Arjuna because he knows that's not Arjuna's thing. He knows, Arjuna, you're a grihasta, you're a kshatriya, that's great. I want you to fight. You need to fight in this battle and kill people. Right? He's not talking about non-violence, peacefulness, self-control, austerity. Right? He's saying those things, but he's telling that you're going to apply those principles in a different way. So, yeah, Krishna is very broad-minded. Sometimes as human beings, we can become very narrow-minded. And we think, oh, one way, you have to be like this. If you don't do this, then you're in Maya. No, anybody can be Krishna consciousness at any moment. And even Srila Prabhupada said that a grihasta who controls his senses and, has sex only for conceiving Krishna conscious children, who works responsibly, maintains his family, and donates to temple, that person is better than a sannyasi. Why? Because sannyasi doesn't have an opportunity for sense gratification. Right? Even if he wanted to enjoy himself, he couldn't. Because why? One, he doesn't have wife, he doesn't have family, he doesn't have money. And the other thing is everybody's always looking at him. He's constantly under scrutiny. So as soon as he does the one little thing wrong, he's finished, right? He's going to be criticized all over Facebook. So, but a grihasta, they can do anything, right? Grihasta, wife, husband is there, money is there. They have their private home. As soon as they go home, close the door, lock the door. They can do any damn thing they want there, and no one's going to know, and no one's, frankly speaking, going to care. Right? But the fact that they're not doing it, the fact that they go behind that closed door, and they're, taking a shower, putting on their devotional clothes, standing in front of their altar, worshiping their deity. Someone needs to mute themselves. Who is it? Who's the culprit? Anyways, Krishna Priya, can you find out who needs to be muted? So yeah, the fact that the grihasta is not, huh? Oh, it's Krishna Priya yourself. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, I have already muted that person.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so the fact that the grihasta is not doing those things, is not just indulging in sense gratification, then they're actually better than a sannyasi. Because what's easier, fasting when you're, in an empty room with no food, or fasting when you have a refrigerator full of, nice food? It's more difficult when you have so many things, You have a whole, pot full of gulab jamans and rasagullas and, pav bhaji or whatever, it's like your favorite preparations that you like to eat. And it's right there in the refrigerator, but today's a fasting day. That's difficult, right? Because sense gratification is available, but you're making a conscious, determined choice to not engage the senses in the objects of the senses. So that's the grihasta's position. Sannyasi, he may want to enjoy, he opens the fridge, there's nothing there. And he's just like, oh, well, whatever, I guess I'll just not eat then. Whereas the grihasta opens the fridge, it's full of good things, and he's like, no, I'm going to fast. There's a lot of good things to eat here, but I'm deciding to fast because I want to please Krishna. So it's actually more difficult. So Grihastha who can be self-controlled is better, Prabhupada says, as good or better than a sannyasi. Okay. Oh, Kishori. Do you want to tell us about sannyasis? Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna
Mataji,
Kishori ji.
Mataji, chapter 2, verse number 69. Mataji, please explain this verse. I can't explain this. I can't understand this verse.
269. Well, I spoke in that verse for like 20 minutes. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. Means that the time that the devotees go to sleep is the time when the non-devotees are waking up in the morning. And the time when the devotees wake up in the morning is the time that the non-devotees go to sleep. But it also means that the things that the non-devotees value, their goals in life are totally the opposite of what the devotees value and what their goals are in life. Right? Non-devotees their goal is sense gratification. And they don't like religion because religion interferes with their sense gratification. Whereas for devotees, the goal is Krishna consciousness. And they don't like sense gratification because it interferes with their Krishna consciousness. So the point Krishna is making here is that material life and spiritual life are the opposite. So if people out there think that you're different, they're right. And that's a good thing. Okay.
Okay.
Shobha's got her hand up.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I'm audible?
Yes.
Mataji, I have a question that some people said that don't ask questions to acharyas, to good devotees, to brahmacharis or and whatever. So whenever we take some classes of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam and some sessions, listening kathas, so questions arise and some people prohibited or stops us that don't ask questions to them because answers will come to you automatically or itself. Is that possible? Is it is it good not to ask questions?
Okay, first of all, no, it's not good not to ask questions. It is good to ask questions, right?
She's
Atato
asking a
Brahma
question about
Jigyasa.
not asking questions. She's asking a question about not asking questions.
Actually, some
It seems that
devotees stops us that don't ask questions to big acharyas who are good in very good in devotion, who are actually on the high level. So they stops us that don't ask questions, and this is not good for you. Answers will come to you itself.
okay, well, those people are not giving you very good advice because we're supposed to ask questions. We have to ask questions, right? Tadvidi pranipatena pari prashnena sevaya. Pari prashnena. Prashna means question, and pari means all around. It means we should ask questions all over the topic, all over the place, to everyone, any senior devotee. Right? We need to ask questions and go on asking
Mataji,
questions till we're satisfied. And
Arjun
hold on.
asked question to Krishna himself.
Yeah, exactly. If Arjuna didn't ask questions, we wouldn't have the Bhagavad Gita. If the sages of Naimisharanya didn't ask questions, we wouldn't have the Bhagavatam. If Parikshit didn't ask questions, we wouldn't have Bhagavatam. Right? Questions are necessary for spiritual life. They're
And at this,
an essential part of the process. Hold on a sec. And at the same time, it is true that some knowledge will come to you, realization will come to you.
yeah.
So it's both. We have to ask questions and listen carefully to the answers. And we can also ask questions to Krishna. You know, we can pray to Krishna like, Krishna, I have this doubt, I have this question. Please give me some insight. And that may come from within the heart. It may come from another devotee. We may be listening to a class and devotee says something. We're like, oh my God, he just answered the question that I had for these last few weeks, right? But we should also take it, we shouldn't just wait for that and assume that's going to happen. We should also ask. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
So don't let anybody discourage you from asking questions. Of course, if you're asking, you have to be considerate also. If you're there's a senior devotee and many devotees want to ask questions and you're just constantly always asking a question and barraging the person with questions, and you need to be considerate of, the time, place, and circumstances and how much questioning is appropriate. Okay, be sensitive, but, don't be discouraged. Like sometimes there's one woman in one temple, one Mataji, and whenever she asks a question, she never stops. She'll just ask a question, and whatever the answer, she'll follow up question, follow up question, follow up question forever. And then nobody else gets to ask a question because she took the whole time, like 15 minutes with her, serial questioning. And every single day she does that. So what happens is that the speakers, they see her hand always goes up first. And then they always choose everybody else and her last only if there's time, because once they choose her, it's over. Game over. It's going to be till the end. So you don't want to be like that. You don't want to be that person who is annoying with their questions. But ask thoughtful questions, relevant questions, respectfully, and sensitivity to other devotees who may have questions. Raki?
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Mataji, my question is sometimes we can control our senses to please Krishna, sometimes like in our fast or something like other things. But it may be unpleasant to our own relations to others, and that makes a relation disturbed. So what to do then? Because we think we understand that it is right and it is for Krishna, but we can control that someone is disturbed by this. So what to do then?
Yeah, so it's like someone was saying before that sometimes we need to hide our devotional practices, right? Because if people are disturbed by our practice of Krishna consciousness, then we don't want to disturb people, right? Krishna says that in chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita, he says that one who doesn't put others into anxiety is very dear to me. So if our Krishna consciousness is causing anxiety to others, it's not that we're going to stop practicing Krishna consciousness, but we're just going to do it in a way that is not confronting to them, Like, for example, whenever I go to visit my parents are favorable to Krishna consciousness, but, they're not devotees. And so it's kind of awkward, it's going to be awkward for me to just sit in the living room, and be like, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. They're just going to think that's really kind of crazy. So, what I do when I visit them is I wake up early in the morning before they get up, and I leave the house and I just go for a walk and I chant all my rounds on Japa walk. And then I come back at the time when they're just waking up, and they think I'm also just waking up. And then we just spend the day talking about all of their whatever they want to talk about. And I don't preach to them. Sometimes I'll give them books, like not necessarily Prabhupada's books, but something like, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami or something like that. That's, that they can relate to. That's kind of fun. It's adventurous. And they'll read that. And then when they read that, then they'll learn something about Prabhupada and they'll get some understanding. They'll also might ask me sometime. If they ask me a question, then I'll answer, but I won't preach to them. And then before I go to bed, I'll go to my room and I'll do my reading. I'll do some journaling, something like that, but I don't practice Krishna consciousness in front of them. So you just have to be sensitive like that. And figure out a way that you can do all of your devotional things, do your complete sadhana, but in a way that doesn't disturb anybody. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Naina.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, I have a confusion. The text number 68 mentioned one should practice this art under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. is called a sadhak or suitable candidate for liberation. So in this text, they are talking about the Krishna who is a spiritual master, or anyone who can are a spiritual master.
So yeah, this is Bhagavad Gita. So it's the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. And Arjuna was very fortunate because he had Krishna directly as his spiritual master, right? We're not so fortunate. We're not living at the time when Krishna had his pastimes on this earth. And so we don't get to see him and interact with him the way Arjuna did. But we're equally fortunate in that there are so many representatives of Krishna who are walking on this earth right now, even as we speak, who are qualified to be spiritual masters. So yeah, it means that we should practice our Krishna consciousness under the guidance of a representative of Krishna, who we can check in with and to make sure that we're doing everything right, that we're not missing anything, that we're not going overboard, that we're not deviating, and that we're doing everything appropriately according to our time, place, and circumstances. So that's necessary. We need a living spiritual master that we can talk to, we can receive the instructions. And this is not only talking about your Diksha Guru, because nowadays in ISKCON, sometimes Diksha Gurus may have many, many thousands of disciples, and we may not be able to, they may not know us personally, and we may not be able to even approach them with our questions or, concerns. So therefore, there's also Shiksha Gurus, mentors or senior devotees that we can approach, that do know us personally, that live locally, and they know our lives, and they can give us very good guidance. So that's necessary. Somehow or other, we need guidance, right? Whether through a Diksha Guru or a Shiksha Guru, mentor, or, if you have devotee, if you're young, right? Like our Kishori ji, I'm assuming you have nice devotee parents. So like that, we need some senior devotees in our life that know us, that care about us, that can guide us in the process so that we don't go off track.
But Mataji, we can say that Srila Prabhupada is a spiritual master.
Yes, Srila Prabhupada is the preeminent Shiksha Guru for every devotee in ISKCON, right? And how we get Shiksha or instruction from Srila Prabhupada is through his books, his lectures, morning walk conversations, like that, right? Following the process, working within the institutional structure that Srila Prabhupada gave us. But we can't go directly to Srila Prabhupada and ask us questions the way you're all asking me questions today, right? It's not exactly the same. So therefore, even though Srila Prabhupada is our main Shiksha Guru, but we're following his Shiksha to his Vani, right? To his immortalized Vani in the form of his books. But in addition to that, we also need a living guru. We need someone who actually knows us, who we can talk to, and we can ask our questions. Because let's say if somebody wants to ask Srila Prabhupada a question, not that Srila Prabhupada is going to directly give you the answer. So then you might just speculate some answer. Or nowadays we have people who think, oh, I'll just take initiation from Srila Prabhupada. Well, how do you know if Srila Prabhupada even accepts you as his disciple? Because he's not here to say yes or no. He's not here to say, oh, maybe you need another year. He's not here to ask you, are you chanting your rounds every day? So that's why the whole Ritvikism doesn't work. We need a living guru who actually, we have a active relationship with, who will agree to accept us, not that we assume that our spiritual life is based on some concoction or assumption or something like speculation. It has to be real. Okay. So we have Prabhupada as our main Shiksha Guru through his teachings. We have our Diksha Guru who initiates us. And then we have other Shiksha Gurus who instruct us as mentors. And you can have an informal relationship with your Shiksha Guru, like a senior devotee that you see in the temple that you respect, that you ask questions to. Or you can also have a more formalized relationship with a Shiksha Guru, where you actually ask the person, can you please be my Shiksha Guru, my go-to person when I have some concerns or doubts? And, you can ask them to accept you as their Shiksha disciple, like that. And that's also very important. Say, even if you have a Diksha Guru who's very accessible, but they leave this world, right? Because nowadays, many of the Diksha Gurus are quite elderly. They're in their like 70s, some of them in their 80s. So they may leave this world while we're still young. So we're not going to get reinitiated, but we still need a guru. We still need that personal guidance. So then we can ask someone to accept us as their Shiksha disciple, and then we have that solid relationship so that we always have guidance. So whatever our situation is, and it's different for each devotee, but what principle stands for all of us is that we all need guidance of a bona fide spiritual master to practice good sadhana bhakti. Okay? Oh, we're at the end of our time here. So, wow, thank you. That was a lot of nice questions and very relevant questions related to the purports. I'm happy that you're reading the purports. Keep doing that. So tomorrow we're going to do chapter 3. Maybe we won't do the whole chapter, but we'll start chapter 3. So maybe you can read like half of the chapter with all the verses and purports, and then let's see how far we go with that tomorrow's class. Okay, Jai. Always a pleasure discussing Krishna Katha with all of you. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol.
Mataji,
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.